There's really just one chord I want to talk about, and it's these first two chords right here. This particular chord is called a suspended chord, and it's a G major 7 suspended. All you need to know about these types of chords is A, Pierre Bourne likes using them a lot, and B, they're great for building tension.
Welcome to the video. It's your boy Kaze of kazebeat.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make wavy melodies and beats similar to the style of Pierre Bourne. After watching this video, you're going to learn how to create unique melodies and chord progressions, some of the signature VSTs and keys to sound selection. You're going to learn keys to mixing our beats, the keys to building drums, and plenty of other gems that will help you stand out as a producer. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get into FL Studio. I always like to start out my tutorials by explaining the key that we're going to use because each key represents a different tone and a different atmosphere. Pierre Bourne melodies make me feel like everything's going to be okay, but kind of in the sense that I'm on like an alien spaceship and I'm just hanging out with my alien homies. We're just vibing, right? That's why today we're going to be making this beat in the key of B minor. The GOAT composer Schubert regarded B minor as a key expressing a quiet acceptance of fate and a very gentle compliance. Specifically for this beat, we're going to be using the harmonic minor scale. The BPM of the project is going to be set to 135. This is just the perfect speed, so sit around 130, 140. You can't go wrong with this. We know that Pierre Bourne has this kind of futuristic sound to his melodies. In this case, I actually want to use a kalimba, but I'm going to show you how to process the sound a certain way so that it sounds more so like a synth. This is just the raw sound. The secret to Pierre Bourne melodies is simplicity. Real quick sound design tips: change the timbre on your zim'bira. This is essentially adjusting the lightness and the darkness of a sound. I would think for Pierre Bourne melodies, we're going to make it a little bit on the darker side. I think the sound of the mallet could be too much. We can easily fix that by adjusting the attack on the envelope. Next, we'll head over to effects. What I decided to do is add on an imager. All imager does is it tells Omnisphere where within your stereo mix to send the sounds. So what I've done is I've made the image extra wide. The rate is set at a 1/4 T, which I think the T represents tremolo. The auto pan depth is at 100%. That just means we're really making the sound wobble, so check it out. Already from Omnisphere we have a reverb, but I want to run a second reverb on a parallel track. We already have a long tail on the sound, so the decay doesn't have to be that long. So we'll turn this down to about a second. There's also a little bit of a dusty sound on the top end, and I don't necessarily want to add reverb on that, so I'm going to turn the EQ cut down quite a bit. I actually decided to add one more thing, which is parallel saturation. I'm using FabFilter Saturn. Our melody is sounding like this. What we're going to focus on next is how to layer other melodies and do some EQ cuts so that things blend together and some other cool effects. The first thing that I'm going to layer is, again, found underneath the kaleidoscopes. We're going to use a Hohner Guitaret. I know I'm just pronouncing it wrong. I'm going to play the melody out real quick for you guys, but I'm also going to break down the different types of chords I'm using. Hit R, spacebar. If you decide to build these chords by clicking them in, you want to make sure you use the strum tool. Since I just played them, all I'm going to do is just manually adjust some of the timings. On this instrument, all I did was I added an EQ cut on the low end like this, because if you go back to the EQ on the first kalimba that we made, you can see that the frequencies kind of collect in that 280 range. So that's why I just cut out these frequencies to kind of clean everything up, and this is just one way that you can try to blend those sounds together. So we're going to stop there on the mixer, and we're going to go over to Omnisphere. So we're going to use one of the Omnisphere oscillators. I want to show you guys how to use the ring modulation. Traditionally, this ring modulation is used to kind of transform the higher frequencies that you have in an overall sound. Looking over here on the left side, we have the different type of modulator. I'm going to use sine, but I'll show you what the others sound like real quick. So this is our normal sound. Put on boost, start increasing the depth. So what happens if we move our modulator to a triangle wave? very synth-like. Saws even more. On the right side here, where you see FM shape, symmetry, etc., messing with these sliders is going to change the modulator. You can get some very crazy sounds with this, but we want this to be smooth and more on the light side, so I'm not going to mess with the shapes. What I noticed with the frequency is that we begin to change the pitch slightly as I move it down, so I'll show you that. But if I move it to 0.5, we get a pretty sick effect. So yeah, you guys see how powerful that this oscillator is. I wish this is something that I started getting into when I first got Omnisphere, but I'm just now starting to get really deep into the sound design. So I thought I'd show you guys how this kind of works, and if you have Omnisphere, you can use it on your next sound.
There's really just one chord I want to talk about, and it's these first two chords right here. This particular chord is called a suspended chord, and it's a G major 7 suspended, but I'm not going to get into music theory or why it's a suspended chord, but all you need to know about these types of chords is A, Pierre Bourne likes using them a lot, and B, they're great for building tension. When you build tension with a chord, it naturally wants to resolve. It'll be amazing when we resolve that funny sound by putting in the right chord afterwards. The suspended chord sounds like this. So the next chord is just like a standard F sharp chord, and it's F sharp, A sharp. There's supposed to be a C sharp here, but it's being played on the other instrument. And then we have this E5. The final thing I want to do with this progression is bump this C sharp up by 1. And the reason that this is nice is it's kind of signaling that we're going back up, so we're beginning to build that tension again. If you want to learn more about suspended chords, then I would just do a quick Google search, and then you can find other places that you can start using them. Since Pierre Bourne beats have kind of a futuristic sound to it, I want to look for something that resembles a flute, but is really just more of a synth sound. So I went to Omnisphere, and under the pads and strings section, I found this afterthought signs. The main thing that I changed was the envelopes here. I set the attack to 0 seconds, the duration 5.7, and I turned the sustain and the release all the way down because I want to be able to trigger this on and off really quickly. Then I went over to the effects and I turned off this chorus echo because I want this to be a clean sound. And then I added a chorus analog so that we can add even more texture to that LFO sound. This pattern is going to be simple. We're just going to be moving between this B and this A sharp. But we can also add some reverb just to push that sound back a little bit into the mix, make it a little bit less harsh. Something else that I noticed Pierre does is he samples his own sounds that have effects on it, and then he exports it and then brings it back into the beat to create something more unique. I'm taking the same synth that we were just using, but I'm linking it over to parallel track this time. And all I've done was I added Beat strip, 2 simple clicks, and I'm using the drop preset so that we have this nice big airy sound. Next, you want to solo your track so that you have only this sound playing. So what we're going to do is just record the entire note playing, plus all the reverb tail that we're going to get after it. So I'll just record this much. Alright, so then we're just sending this to a new mixer track. So now what we want to do is reverse every single sound. So we'll do this, and reverse like that. If you're getting a clicking sound like I am, go to your sample editor and in declicking mode, select smooth bleeding. So next we're going to move on to the drums. We're going to start off with a really simple 2-step pattern with the hi-hats, and we're going to put in some claps. You can put more width onto your clap if you go pre-computed effects, and turn on stereo delay. You see how the signal just kind of doubles up. For the 808s, you're probably best off by selecting a nasty, disgusting 808 that has a lot of initial transient. Also, for your 808s, if you want to, you can follow along the chord progression. At this point, we just have to add some more perks, some more open hats. We've just got to arrange a beat, but this is the overall structure and it's super simple. So the last few things I want to say about the drums is to A, use a drum bus, which means send all of your sounds to one bus. I know some people like to have separate buses for their perks, separate buses for their hi-hats, etc. But you should all link those to at least one like master drum bus. So that's what I have here. So once you have that master bus, you can link it to a parallel track and then add some reverb. And this is something I do on every beat, and it just helps make it seem like your drums are all existing in one space. The trick is to use a tiny bit of reverb, just barely enough to notice it. Next thing we can do is create another parallel track and then add compression. This is going to give your drums just some more presence within the mix. I like doing a short attack and a fast release. And yes, the drums are quite loud, so we're going to turn down this volume fader. And lastly, to get even more drum bounce, we're going to start adjusting the shifts. I talk about this all the time in my other videos, so I'm not going to get too detailed, but just make sure you go through your hi-hats, add a little bit of groove to them. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That's Pierre Bourne melodies and drums, made quite simple. Thank you so much for watching. If you got any value out of this or you found a cool tip or trick they didn't know, please consider hitting the subscribe button and joining the comment house, because I love you a long time. I'll be dropping my very first drum kit at 1K. This drum kit is like everything I've used over the 6 years of my music production. It'll be a good one. It'll be free. If you guys have any other suggestions, then hit me up on IG at kazebeat or just comment down below. I'm gonna arrange a beat, I'll mix it down a little bit more, and then I'll let you hear a rough draft of it. Thank you so much for your time, and as always, I'll see you next week. Peace.